Now remain very quiet. Keep your eyes open. All right, Miss Tyler. Here comes the last of it. I wish you every good luck.
What's up, everyone? Before I begin this review, I do want to say thank you to all my subscribers. I finally hit a very cool milestone and went over 100 subs. You guys are awesome. I couldn't have done it without you all. Many of you have also contributed comments and offered words of encouragement. I just want to acknowledge that because it does mean something to me. Now, onto our Twilight Zone marathon, which continues with the landmark episode, Eye of the Beholder. As always, spoilers are ahead. Eye of the Beholder was episode 6 from season 2. It was directed by Douglas Hayes and written by Rod Serling. As the story opened, we meet Janet Tyler, as played extremely well by Maxine Stewart. Janet has just had her 11th and final treatment. She's disfigured, and her hope is that this treatment will help her fit in and look like everyone else. Janet is presented as a woman who simply wishes to live among others and lead a normal life. Even though she's bundled up under a pile of bandages like a mummy, Maxine Stewart still shines through. She uses her voice and body language to convey her suffering. Even from her opening scene, we see her desperately grasping at a nurse, longing for any human connection. There's no way anyone can watch this and not root for Janet. One of the things I liked about Janet's character was she wasn't really presented as a victim of her circumstances. Granted, she was actively trying to change herself and conform, but she gave strong and valid reasons as to why she desired so badly to fit in. One of her most telling statements was when she mentioned her earliest memory was of frightening another child. This really resonates. As we all know, if you can't fit in for whatever reason, then by definition you're an outcast, meaning you can't even participate in the world, you're shut out. I think most of us can relate to this at some level. Now imagine that feeling, except multiplied and amplified. And to make matters even worse, in Janet's world, where ugliness is essentially a crime, it isn't just your neighbors who will shun you. It's literally the law that you'll be removed from society altogether. This aspect of the story lends significant nuance to Janet. She does question the so-called society that has labeled her an undesirable. Janet is very critical of the totalitarian state.
The state isn't God, Doctor.
Tyler, please.
The state is not God.
Clearly, Janet resents the very same shitty world she yearns to be a part of. That adds a layer of contradiction to her character, but I like that. To me, Janet's conflicted nature and her contradictions are relatable. This is what gives her character a sense of depth. Many of us at times have felt the urge to rock the boat, question rules, unjust laws, authority. However, at the same time, we conform. In some manner or some way, we conform. Why do we do this? In order to fit in and survive. In this case, however, fitting in means 11 surgeries and requires complete subservience to the state. After some time, it's established that Janet simply wants this ordeal over with, one way or the other. With that, her doctor reluctantly agrees to remove her bandages. After a slow and memorable build-up, the bandages are removed, and the reaction from the doctor and nurses says it all.
No change. No change at all. Needle, please.
So it's here that we learn Janet is actually beautiful, by our standards, but the norm for her world is something else entirely. Now, I was lucky enough to see this episode when I was younger, so the fact that the doctors and their faces were always in shadow was not something I noticed. This, of course, made the big twist in the end all the more shocking for me. So for this, I do have to credit the director for excellent and meticulous choreography. Understandably so, Janet is quite frantic and proceeds to run through the hospital. It's here that we, the viewer, truly see the faces of everyone else, and we get a more thorough glimpse of her world. Flat-screen TVs throughout the hospital project an image of the state's leader, who's droning on and on about the need for conformity. Eventually, a handsome man, again by our standards, greets Janet, and gently takes her off into exile. They're apparently headed to a village for her own kind. Eye of the Beholder is arguably one of Rod Serling's most popular and memorable episodes. When people think of Twilight Zone twists, this is typically the episode they'll cite as an example. Despite how memorable the big reveal was, there's obviously a lot more to this episode than just a twist. Eye of the Beholder serves as both a commentary on the cruelty of totalitarianism and as a critique of what we as a society perceive as normal. To be clear, the perception of normalcy is important. It goes beyond simply being able to function in daily life. This episode demonstrates the dangers of viewing people as abnormal, due to their differences, especially when such treatment is backed up and enforced by an authoritarian regime. Any awful or potentially horrific treatment of so-called outcasts can be easily justified. Let's jump to Rod Serling's closing narration for some clarity on this. Now the questions that come to mind: where is this place and when is it? What kind of world where ugliness is the norm and beauty the deviation from that norm? You want an answer? The answer is it doesn't make any difference, because the old saying happens to be true. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, in this year or 100 years hence. On this planet or wherever there's human life, perhaps out amongst the stars, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Lesson to be learned in the Twilight Zone. Some may view this episode as a one-woman show. It should be mentioned, though, Maxine Stewart only played Janet Tyler while under the bandages. However, Donna Douglas portrayed Janet Tyler once the bandages came off. Why were two different people cast to play this part? In Mark Scott Zickery's Twilight Zone companion, it was noted that the director, Douglas Hayes, cast Maxine because her voice supposedly didn't suggest that of a beautiful woman. Instead, Maxine's voice suggested a harsher, stronger, and more realistic woman. Donna Douglas, on the other hand, was cast to heighten the surprise of the big twist. Maxine Stewart herself was quoted as saying, "It's absolutely right for Hollywood to do a script about conformity, and then demand that your leading lady conform to a standard of beauty. I do understand that, though. They were saying something. They wanted a really beautiful beauty to point up the difference." Maxine went on to say that she absolutely loved the part and enjoyed playing Janet. So there didn't seem to be any hard feelings. Some may see the silhouetted doctors and nurses as serving as almost a backdrop for the big reveal. However, I actually think everyone in this cast was pretty strong as well. Another notable performance in this episode was William D. Gordon as Dr. Bernardi. He not only showed compassion for Janet, but he too questioned the harshness of the state to which they were so dutifully serving. His frustration over the situation gave this already rich story even more dimension. Eye of the Beholder is just a fantastic episode. There's no way around it. This is one of the best of Twilight Zone. There's a reason why those iconic pig faces show up in a lot of promos and ads. There's a reason why it sits at the top of my banner. There's just something visually stunning about that. I mean, take a look at that face. This is the face of Twilight Zone. It's a top tier episode. I highly recommend it. I give this one 5 out of 5 bundled up and bandaged mummy faces. Don't forget, hit like and sub. We gotta get to 200, 300, 400, 500, 1 million. You get the point.